Are you guys ready for the future? They're ending the penny, and the question remains: where's all the money going? And what's happening to your 2 cents? If you know, with your vote on it, where's all that money going? And it looks like Dubai has all kinds of information about Bitcoin going where it's going. Are you a Bitcoiner? I don't know. It's Memorial Day weekend, and I'm expecting some very live events happening. Like I guess some already started there in DC. The summer's just getting going. It barely got hot where I'm at, so I think things are literally heating up, and we're going to see some really bizarre stuff this summer.
Yeah, and I wanted to just say it is going to get bizarro and heavily. That's all you're going to hear about is crypto through the whole summer until you're not. So keep that as a warning. And the stablecoin issuance, don't be lulled by this being some sort of savior moment that's going to bring in a stabilization of the US dollar or the world economy. In fact, it's the opposite. It's going to replace what is currently. Now, I don't know if you knew the news, but there were not enough people that were purchasing the 30-year treasury from us. So the interest rate needed to rise for that. And there weren't enough buyers worldwide, so we ended up buying our own treasury bonds back at 5.81%, which sent the actual mortgage rate now, as of today, above 7.5% again. The same thing happened in Japan. They couldn't find buyers in Japan for their debt. So Japan went above 3.6%, I believe, and it's the highest it's ever been ever in recorded history for Japan on their long-term notes as well. We are at the tipping point of a financial crisis, just as it occurred several times before, where the bond market would lead it, and this stablecoin issuance, the stablecoin is going to replace what we know as US dollars now. It'll be a swap, but here's the thing. When you take your paper money in, if you have paper money, if it's not all digital in a bank somewhere, they are absolutely going to ask you where you obtain that money. They're going to want to bring it in from the wild, but you're going to have to jump through hoops and hurdles to get it. So the stablecoin issuance that you're reading about in this Genius Act is going to allow not only governments to issue stablecoins, companies will be able to issue them as well, and banks will be able to issue them as well. So it's not as if Circle is just one USDC that's going to be used across and replace all the US dollars. Individual companies, banks, and now our government will be able to issue based on, now whoever's going to do the assessment of the value of this, it's going to be a swap, apparently 1-to-1. So my whole thing was, okay, this sounds great on paper and that's cool, but where does all the existing debt go to? That's the whole thing. As soon as this Genius Act passes, we are in the beginning of the financial reset. And then we can go into the Bitcoin thing later. I did a full 1-hour expose and really dove in and took quite a bit of time to do the research on it. We're going to be coming to a liquidity squeeze in Bitcoin where only the corporations will be able to afford it from this point forward. The amount of available Bitcoin out there is going to get shrunken to the point where it's going to have absurd premiums to it. All at the same time, everything's being reset financially anyway. So just hang on to your hat in a hurricane here, because when this stablecoin thing goes off, now they're trying to sell it right now. I'll read you some text as we go through the show. But it is absolutely a wolf in sheep's clothing. This is the most dangerous thing. This resets our economy globally and starting in the United States. Your FedNow account wallet is active, by the way. If you're not familiar, anybody who has a social security number, I'm pretty much sure that's everybody listening if you have ears out here. Your FedNow account balance is tied to your social security number, but The Fed Now account it's a direct deposit stablecoin issued standard. It's not going to be a CBDC in America. The way that these things are minted or issued is, again, it's taking the value of a real world asset and giving it to the entity. So if the bank owns my home, that goes on their balance sheet and they're allowed to claim that in terms of the amount of dollars they have slash stable coins, one equals $1. And then those can be parsed out. So the whole thing, like let's say Bank of America, whatever it is, they're going to congrue all their value into one basket, and that will be the amount of issuance that they're allowed to then reloan and start the new loan system out into the public again. Now, again, the way it's working, it's very like super gray worded that you could take it in 50 different directions. That's why, a lot of people are against it right now. It is so wishy-washy when you read in there, it really can go any direction. And there's no cap on the issuance also. So we're coming into a reissued system that has one-to-one value, but I'm telling you, just like day 2, they're going to start devaluing it again. And inflation will be here. So this whole, well, it'll stop inflation, yeah, the first day. But then who has control of that issuance? So anyway, I'm going to allow you to, our lips are off. I don't know why that is. My lips are on. I see my lips. But anyway, Ransom, take it away. I'm going to spread some links out there, and anybody please spread the links tonight. It's a very important episode, and I will get into reading you some things about the Genius Act. We are so dangerously close. They talked about the Great Reset and all this stuff. We're really close to the financial beginnings of a new system emerging from beneath our feet here. As spooky as that sounds, and it is spooky. Like everything you ever owned or had, it's not going to be in jeopardy. It's going to be in change and in flux and in new ownership hands, let's say. You don't own anything anymore after the Stablecoin Act starts, basically. So I guess Klaus Schwab was correct. You will own nothing. But they didn't frame it as, hey, by the way, Genius Act stablecoin issuance through private entities and also governments are going to swipe everything you've ever owned and reissue it with a new debt system. And by the way, you'll be able to pull from that off your phone. If you can take the equity out of it, and they want you to drain the equity, and then you don't own anything. So anyway, be careful if they offer you the equity in your possessions to spend them out in the stablecoin issuance. That's the most dangerous thing, man. People cannot control their spending. People are just going to spend everything they've ever worked for in just years, and then what? Then what is the one I want to go into? But Ransom, take it away as I spread some links out. Thanks for joining everybody tonight. CivilizationCycle.com. That's the website. You can contact us through there, and also put in your email. We'll send you the show notes of the points we covered tonight. And I'll see you in a couple minutes there, Ransom.
All right. I've been looking around at all these stores, and they keep doing this thing. And actually, Ryan, that helps us with the show, we were talking about it before we got on the show here, and it's like everywhere you go, how it's a mandatory tip. It's a guilt trip about some kind of charity. But then on top of that, I've been noticing that everywhere you go, they want to round the number up. So they want to just take a little bit of your money, basically without asking you. It's like a hidden tax, but it's legal. And now that we've destroyed the pennies, or we're doing it, we're in the midst of it, coin counting, all Americans to see major change coming with their cash after key policy change, and it will change grocery prices. And then if you look down below it, it's talking about businesses are trying to figure out whether or not they're going to round prices up or round prices down. But this is nothing.
They're going up, man. Only one direction. Are you
Right.
kidding?
And this is just like whenever you see the stock market go up and then you see it go down, there's these little bits of pennies that just disappear in the transactions. And somebody somewhere is accumulating these. And it's not unlike Bitcoin mining where, like it's constantly going and they're buying and then selling and then buying and then selling, trying to use algorithms to keep track of that. But what I find funny is that it's just open theft. And then if you saw the new spending bill that we just had, this administration wants to spend money like no other, just like the last. But I get this in the mail. Oh, you can't see it because of the backwards. But what it is a 150 years of cent designs. They want you to, give them money so that they could send you every penny ever made, because this is an investment in your future now, like a collectible coin. American money I mean, that kind of shows you the inflation right there, when we're no longer even counting the cents. And kind of the question is what happens to your 2 cents now? What happens to your vote about what happens to all that money that's trickling away and disappearing with fluctuating prices? And then the whole thing points to getting rid of actual cash in the first place. They want to get rid of change first, then comes the cash. And we've talked about many times the various different reasons that they would use as an excuse to get rid of cash. It funds crime. It funds, other nefarious things that you can use cash for. It's dirty. It might get you sick. It might spread disease. And then also counterfeiting, which is, rampant around where I live. They have counterfeiting all the time. People are getting in trouble for that. So even with the new ways that they make money, they're making counterfeit just as fast as they make that. And all of those things lead to one thing, and that's some kind of digital currency that they're going to force you to be using. So right now, people are watching the Bitcoin market because it's going up and it's going down. And they've already seen that it started at a very unimaginable low price compared to what a single Bitcoin is today. And I know there's plenty of people that want to kick themselves in the rear end because they had a bunch of these cheap Bitcoins early on, and then they sold them for whatever reason. And now we're talking maybe possibly $200,000 in the next year for a Bitcoin. And that's just one avenue of the digital currency thing. And I've been watching, they're talking a lot about on the news, beating it with a dead horse, that we're going to have a centralized stable coin that will be interchangeable with money. And then, I saw actually a journalist do their job and ask them, well, what's backing that specific, stable coin? And then the guy didn't really have an answer, but he did, say, well, it'll be equivalent to cash, immediate cash transferring, and not based on like stocks or liquidities or any of the other stuff out there, commodities, none of that. It's based on strictly one-to-one how the dollar's doing is how they were trying to portray this. The problem with that is the dollar's been long, waiting for a bust. And I see big recession coming. A lot of people don't, they may think that things are doing good because actually the economy's not bad right now. A lot of things are turning around. The question is when does the Federal Reserve bubble pop finally? Because that's what everybody's been waiting on, probably at least half of my life, since I understood the difference between actual money that's based on gold or commodities, or even the GDP of the manpower of a country, what they're worth, but to base money on the fact that you just print it and then loan it to yourself and then print some more when you need some more. There's no wealth behind it. And when you're seeing the actual cash on the streets, just penny by penny float away, somebody somewhere is accumulating massive amounts of wealth while the money becomes worthless.
Yeah, and if I could dovetail in on that, the Genius Act, it's about taking the US dollar to a global level and replacing that debt with a new issuance. They're going to call it a dollar not to spook everybody. If they called it like the black coffee stable coin, you would freak out that your money just disappeared. But since it's called a dollar and it's just going to replace digitally, and here they even say issuers must adhere to a 1-to-1 reserve backing with anti-money laundering, AML protection, regular audits. Oh, if you're going to want to access that, are going to have to submit to all types of KYC. You think that yellow star that you need to not wear on your clothing, but on your driver's license, that is going to be totally tied in for you to access that system or not. As we move down this chain here of a couple of years, if you don't have that yellow star on your driver's license, you are not going to be able to access this. This comes directly into this whole AML KYC. and to open an account, withdraw money, use credit cards, etc. You're going to have to prove your ID, but they're not going to allow you to do the old ID. You're going to be forced to push in and get the new one. So we'll see how that works. And this stablecoin regulation is going to be a worldwide thing because it has to be swappable around the world. You think they're going to get people to go work and set up new grow zones in North Africa if they can't pay them on something that's worth $1 somewhere else? Nobody's going to work and like take that big hit when they try to transfer money. This is swapping out the old debt for something new that is supposed to replace it, but something is going to need to hyperinflate away for this to work. That's the whole thing. Is I keep asking the questions, like that reporter should have pressed a little more as well. Like, where's the debt going to go? Okay, you're backing it with what? Now, as far as I know, there's a couple different backends. They're going to still use U.S. Treasuries, which are just as worthless. They're going to try to put some gold in there and slide that in. Ooh, gold backed. But the main thing is each individual company, the land holdings they have, the machinery they have, the factories they have, and the output that they produce, just like we have on the stock market evaluation for companies, although price per earnings per share and all that stuff that makes no sense anyway on how you can run a company that's 70 times, more value than they're producing per year. I was like, what? How are you? Some of these things are just insanity anyway in the whole stock market arena. But again, who values that? Because the amount that they have is going to be the amount that they can issue. Now, that's the craziest thing is companies will now be allowed to issue their own stablecoin. So, for an example, Costco, they're going to be able to issue their own Costco stablecoin, which is a one for a $1. Now, you'll be able to use that in some sort of swap on a credit card system, or you could just use their tokens paid back just like you do with any bank. Like every single institution has become its own lending bank based on the stablecoin issuance. This is another shocker. So who's to say that, Costco has the best accounting and that you paid that off and they know that they can trace it on the blockchain for sure. It gets into such an opaque, such a strange road we're going down. Like the banks are a little more regulated. They're going to kind of do what they still do, but they're going to swoop in everybody's real estate banking, car mortgage or car loans, mortgages on homes, buildings, commercial real estate. That all counts as value too against what they can hold and issue in new stablecoin issuance. Now the government's the big one, obviously they're going to try to be digitizing, for a better term, in a real world asset class to try to combine all the value of everything in America owned by the government. Now, currently we're limited to just those treasury bills and how the government operates. But in this bizarro stablecoin world that we're moving to, think about the land value of all government held land across either the United States or all those military bases we have everywhere around the world. All these places are all going to have a value assigned to it, plus the minerals in the ground. Even if they're not proven reserves or if they're getting into, some sort of exploration, they think it's there. They've used LiDAR. They can confirm it. Okay, that has a value. So these numbers are going to just get ridiculously inflated, like unbelievable inflation on this thing. They're going to do like quadrillions of dollars for the land holdings and mineral rights and all these things that are proven in America, the water rights, the lumber, all these things, quadrillions of dollars. This 36 trillion you see now, that's nothing. That's peanuts. That's nothing in comparison to what we're about to see, this tidal wave of new issuance just out of nothing, out of thin air. And I wish that reporter would have gone further. And again, I would be sitting in the room just bothering the crap out of people going, tell me this. What do you mean by that? That doesn't make sense. How can you issue this? How are you going to get earnings off this? So another thing that they're going to try to boost the stock market with is, okay, some of these companies got 50 times earnings, 70 times earnings. All right, well, they're going to let them run and that will be their valuation. Not actually what they produce, their profit and loss sheet and like what they manufacture and, what they're holding for machinery and land and factories and sort of thing. They're going to let them run the full gamut of the valuation, which is insane also. How do you do that's hyperinflation when you allow that to occur? And then you can issue stable coins against that. Like, and MicroStrategy and BlackRock, and they're going to become their own Bitcoin lending banks at the same time of all this stablecoin thing. So I am absolutely unequivocally saying we are at the precipice of a global financial reset. As soon as this Genius Act passes, now I'll read a little more for you here. They pretend like it's bipartisan. Oh, everybody's fighting. They've already agreed, if you're going to get your payday for doing this here. So it's actually called the Guiding Establishing National Innovation for U.S. Stablecoins. But again, it is going to be a worldwide standard. It's not going to be just here in America. It's already been set and slated for across this planet. ECB, or European Central Bank, they're going to do a digital token that's a central bank digital issued token. And by the way, remember how they flagged everybody and flogged us over the head and made us adopt all their garbage website, thing? Oh, you got to opt in this and all that. You couldn't just have a website. You had to like do all the cookie management and everything. Well, they're going to be doing the same thing with banking and issuance of their central bank digital currencies. So you're going to have to adopt into their system, and they're going to have to adopt into our system, which means what? Oh, you're going to have more ID. You're going to have to prove who you are. They're going with a zero trust on this, meaning they don't trust you, even if it's you. You have to prove that you're yourself. And so this is where it comes into a whole nother layer here. To get access to your money, they're going to a zero trust or a trustless system. That means assume they're a fraud, assume they're a thief, assume you're a counterfeiter. And then that's guilty until proven innocent. And then you have to prove your identity. So every single transaction that you do in this new system, once it's emerging here, you are guilty until proven innocent, and you have to prove. And then if you have the wrong type of ID, you won't be able to prove that you're you. And I am absolutely 1000% saying you are going to require a retinal scan to do this in the future. Your fingerprints right now on your face, and that's not going to be enough. They're even talking at least some, I don't know how true this is, but you're going to have to put your hands down and there's the veins. Each of us have different veins in the forearms and thing, and they're going to get a scan of even the veins in your arms. That's how much they're talking about, because you won't be able to, your voice can be replicated, your face can be replicated, all this new AI technology. The only biological way to prove you as you is through your biology. And are you willing to give that away just to access your bank? I don't know. So over on Cointelegraph, they have a really good rundown on this. Massive move in Washington. This is truly one of the biggest things in money to occur in the last 100 years here. Okay, so when we got the US dollar, Bretton Woods Agreement and all that after World War II, that would be the next largest thing that would have occurred. This is a reshaping of the entire financial system on the planet. I cannot overstate how dangerous this is for all of us. There's no way to pay the debt back, so they're going to have to do something to hyperinflate it away and then reset and bring out a new standard. And this is the beginning. So if you haven't seen, there's a lot of states that are taking on Bitcoin treasuries as well. So let me read you here the key provisions of the Genius Act. So the payment of the stablecoin, the bill defines a payment of stablecoin as a digital asset, and it's supposed to be pegged as a fixed monetary unit, i.e. $1 equals $1, or approved high quality liquid assets. So they already substituted it right there. First, are all this big, bold language. It's got to be pegged. It's a monetary value. It's a payment 1-to-1. We guarantee it's 1-to-1. Oh, wait. But by the way, you could use another high quality asset that's liquid, i.e. gold, silver, your digitized title for your property. Yeah, because that can be fractionalized then. And that will be liquid. Like right now, the hardest thing is you can't get your house liquid. Like if you own your house, it's your house is an illiquid asset pretty much, unless you do that one giant sell, and then you get capital gains tax and everything. But with digitization, you can rip off a piece of that, making it liquid. And that's the whole thing. We're going to get so scammed by this thing. I'm telling you, we're going to get scammed. And then they go into the licensing and the oversight. Clear procedures for institutions seeking licenses to issue stablecoins. Well, that's pretty much every company over a certain valuation, every government. And then you're going to be the federal requirements. Well, where's all this federal requirements and oversight led to right now? An enormous ballooning debt of 37 trillion, sending us into a hyperinflation. Gee, thanks for the oversight. You're so good at your jobs. Yeah, right. It's just like a 2.0, but more control over your everything you own financially. And here's what it gets. Like reserve requirements right now, like banks need to have supposedly 10%, but everything's just so fictitious right now. But the stablecoin issuers are going to be mandated to have a 1-to-1 reserve ratio. Again, some sort of liquid assets, cash, short-term US treasuries, central bank deposits, or the digitized ownership of every American citizen into one pool, basically. And this is where it comes into. These are the reserve requirements. They need to there's something that's going to coattail with the stablecoin issuance. They're going to have, they call it layering. There's going to be another layer there that allows the digitization of assets, i.e. from banks that are holding mortgages. And that will be another layer that they need. Here's your consumer protection. In the event of insolvency, holders of payments of stablecoins are granted priorities over other claims to the issuer. Bullshit is what I'm going to say about that. They can talk to their blue in the face, but you're still going to be last in line. Are you kidding me? These broker dealers, you really think they're going to lose money? Do you think our government's going to lose money? Oh, come on. Really? Like even today, I hope everybody saw David Rogers Webb and the whole great taking thing. Like if you own a stock and you think you own the shares, you don't, you're the last one paid out. The brokers in front of you, the clearinghouses in front of them, the issuers themselves. In case of a debt, they can get it back, buybacks, forced buybacks. You're like 3 or 4 steps down, even though you think you own shares in a company. You're the last to be paid. You'll never get your money back. I like it the way my grandparents had a Campbell Soup. They were very invested in Campbell Soup. My grandpa worked for Campbell Soup. He took part of his salary in Campbell Soup stocks and options. But they had the actual real paper ones, the real paper. And those validated ownership. And you had that, you were the first one to get paid because I have it right here. It's like $1 in your hand, not a digital screen. If you have the paper dollar, I mean, you're the first one that gets paid because you got the dollar. Consumer protection, the insolvency thing, again, that's a gray area. And the last thing here, the regulatory jurisdiction, payment of stable coins, they're not going to be classified as securities because that would, make corporations pay more taxes. And we couldn't have that, of course. Investment companies, nah, they couldn't be taxed either. Are you kidding me? You think BlackRock's going to get extra tax? No. So the regulatory boundaries for this are only, quote unquote, for certain issuers and investors. See, this is already a scam from the beginning, the way they're writing this thing out. I mean, it's so scammy that, that snake oil salesman actually looks like a guardian angel in comparison to this. There's no words for it. It's already set to fail from the beginning. It's set to strip wealth from everybody. And it's set to prop up these corporations with less of a tax liability and allow them to literally mint their own money, for a better term, based on false valuations of their companies through these ridiculous evaluations we have in the stock market today. Kylie, can you sort of see where this thing is going to take us? The people at the bottom are going to get wealth extracted the most. Those at the top are going to get incredibly wealthy and the most protected. There's going to be a firewall layer between. Oh, it's an AI agent host. Oh, you can't. Oh, the office is closed. Oh, we've gone AI. And there's going to be a disconnect. I swear I'm going to be living, it'll be like a Bitcoin citadel. You'll be on high on a hill looking down. All those people trying to call the help numbers. But anyway, I digress. This is a Charlie Foxtrot times 10 here. And the Securities Exchange Commission and all these SEC and everything. I can't believe that there's not more scrutiny on it. And, Ransom, I'm glad you brought it up that at least there's some reporters out there asking for some clarification of this. This is the most ill-will written monetary piece. This is going to go down in history as the largest wealth transfer, an absolute fleecing of the American public, global public, under this guise of protecting you and issuing stable coins. Oh my gosh. I actually cringe when I read this thing. Like, they're really trying to steal our money and steal everything we own with this. And then Bitcoin's going to come to a point. It's already so far past anyway. I don't think any, you know, very few individuals can purchase a full Bitcoin right now. It's only in the realms of governments. I did this whole expose for about, it was an hour long report. Sovereign wealth funds, family offices that are in charge of at least $100 million in their family office, governments like sovereign nations, corporations, and exchange traded funds. That's sort of, those are the only ones who can afford like $110,000 Bitcoin. So those are the major players that are going to corner the Bitcoin market. And probably between here and 2028, they're buying about 3,000 Bitcoin a day currently amongst them. But this seems like it's going to ramp up. This is going to be an illiquid supply, especially when we get to the next halving in 2028. The 450 Bitcoin that's being mined currently today is going to slash to 225 Bitcoin. And at that point, institutional adoption, that'll take, well, it'll be over $1 million at that point for BTC, in my opinion, as well as others. But then there's going to be no liquidity in there. I mean, every single Satoshi that comes on market will be swooped up through an algorithm, and you will be able to get premiums on the Bitcoin that you sell. So let's say the price of Bitcoin is about $1 million. You might even, put an ask out there at like 1.5 million or 1.2 million, 1.3, and somebody will hit it because they just want to get the unbuyable asset. This is where it goes. But again, some hands are going to loosen up when a Bitcoin gets to $1 million. Are you going to hold it? I don't know. I might be on the beach somewhere. If I had Bitcoin, I missed that thing. I can't believe it. I was like that dude who bought pizzas, and I should have bought Bitcoin back in the day. I don't have any. I don't even have a cryptocurrency, but I just study it because I like the way you can see the future bending with it. I never believed in it, and now it's everywhere all the time. But anyway, I'll let you go, man. I've been rambling too long. Excuse me, Ransom. The floor is yours.
Let's see here. I was actually, about to say some of the same stuff because I was looking at this whole thing, and I was looking down at what they were talking about, and within a month, I saw with these numbers right here that somebody picked up about, what is that, $6 billion worth of just interest was made when the price went up, when the price went down, and then I was looking at this like. They're still claiming gold dominates, but Bitcoin's absorbing the flow, right? And this is that 110. But look at this. This is kind of the takeaway. The new crypto bill is supposed to turbocharge the stablecoin industry. 4 changes it might bring. They're going to confuse you with new symbols on the stock
Oh, for
market
sure,
and
man.
crypto.
For sure.
All right, there's one. And then here's this, more stablecoin issuance. That's what you were talking about before. More tokenized products. And this
Hey,
gets into.
don't let that lexicon confuse you. Tokenized products means they're taking your house and they're going to rip it into a smart contract with a value on it that can be parsed out in individuals probably going down like, I don't know, 8 or 10 decimal places deep.
Right. And when it comes down to it, they're trying to base all this on the dollar so that they can control what goes up and what goes down and when, so that they can get the money in the transfer in the in between. But this kind of goes to a different idea that you were talking about, the in-house products and other stuff. So this is not only, all of these companies that constantly send you, we'll give you 100,000, we'll give you 200,000, we'll give you whatever your home's worth, we'll let you borrow it. But the companies themselves, I think, are seeing in the near future that there's going to be a dollar problem. And kind of what I'm talking about is stuff like Home Depot, Lowe's, construction, different stuff like that are issuing out lots of their own credit. So it's all in-house dollars. All of it's based on what they think their products are worth. And then, you got the finance charge on it. I think most of the deals are like, if you give them their money back right away, they won't give you any, they won't take any interest on it. But if you don't pay right away, it goes up to some, 30 plus APR or something like that. But my point is that, like me, myself, I've been, they've given me more credit from these corporations, just giving it to me. Like, I think I got $4,000 credit line from Home Depot the other day because I gave them something on the receipt when I was there buying some stuff. And in the past, I'd never get any of that. But now everybody and every institution wants to give me credit, but the banks, they're not offering me money, right? So the banks themselves do not want to give me money as like so I can go spend it. But the corporations have no problem with adding me into their debt consolidation for the future as a stockholder in the way that I owe them money forever and ever because you bought a bunch of stuff. You can look at that a different way. There's
Well,
going to
wait,
be a
wait, so
lot.
kind of dovetail into there. See,
Yeah.
that goes back into it. The corporations will be able to put you on the balance sheet and then issue that many stable coins because that's part of their balance sheet now. And the total valuation and everything that includes anything that's owed to the company that could be a payback in the future. That's what they want to do because suddenly you gave them an extra 4,000 stable coins to issue, for example.
Right. And this is like this goes right back into this article, wider crypto adoption, where more people are using it and having to use it, and then it all circles back around to support for the dollar. So once they
Hmm.
get this all intermixed and intermingled, when no one actually knows where any of the money is, if the dollar crashes, then it goes back to these corporations that you've made a commitment to be able to have their money, their coin, their everything. So it's getting that way with not only like food delivery, all of that stuff is going to fall into this whole trap of being stuck, and then when the actual dollar's gone, there's nothing but gold because all of these cryptos will crash. And over here,
Perhaps.
like,
So you're saying right there, you're just talking about a replacement. So if the dollar, I mean, the dollar we're used to crashes, they're just going to substitute it with the new dollar that's backed by stable coins. I mean, they're not going to change the name of it. So if one system crashes, you might not even know because by the time it crashed by the morning, they would have reissued everything and put a new base on it, still calling it the dollar.
yeah, but they took whatever the loss was in profit for them.
Oh,
Meanwhile, you get
absolutely.
stuck with the reduced digital currency, and people won't even know that it's going up and down. It's just like the grocery store prices. People don't really pay attention, all that much to each individual item, how much it's going up, how much it's going down. But if you actually do keep track, none of it's going down. It's all incrementally going up. They might put it on sale or something, or reduce the price by like 5 cents after they increase the price by like 15 cents, and then they'll increase the price again by 5 cents again, making you think it didn't go up that much. But within a year's period, it did go up 20 to 30 cents per item. But they're doing the same thing. Like I'm looking across the crypto market right now, and all of the cryptos basically are up.
Yeah,
And
CoinGecko's a good one. Oh, you're on Cointelegraph. Yeah, and again, since you mentioned cents and we were talking about cents tonight, so our dollar has two divisible zeros behind it, or two decimal points. Like you can go 0.01 and that's it, and then you're at the penny, right? But these, crypto issuance on different tokens can go 18 decimal points deep, like 0.00000000001 down there, right? That's
right,
what they're scraping off of each transaction. Now, it doesn't sound like a lot unless you're running trillions of transactions per day, and suddenly that adds up pretty quick. And you won't
absolutely.
notice that, 10th decimal deep that you're missing, one of whatever, maybe it's a Cardano coin or, it's Stellar Lumens, or you're missing part of a Bitcoin, like one Satoshi disappeared. It's just, that deep on the decimals is really hard. Damn, it's hard to keep track of a lot of banks at 2 decimal points. So, no, can you go back to the Coin Gecko, or can you go back to the Coin Telegraph? I cut you off there, but go ahead,
Yeah.
please.
No, I was just saying they're intertwining all of this stuff to the
Yeah,
point
they're
where
intertwining, so you get confused. You're gonna, unless you followed this for
absolutely.
years, you're gonna be damn confused.
And I'm not even saying I even understand it. I just see
I
that,
don't
you know,
either, and I've been studying this stuff for years, and I still don't understand what's going on with the
I'm looking
stablecoin
at like
issuance. Go ahead.
1.2 billion in shorts, but this is the part that caught my eye when they were saying, the price was at 72. I forget what it was. Let's see, here it is, 72 billion, and right, and then on May 20th, and then the market increased by 8% from 66.6 billion just a week earlier. So right there, you can see there's $6 billion that just disappeared.
Hmm. Well,
Where'd it
really, that's
go?
very small. It's very small in comparison to the regular markets. I mean, you're talking, hundreds of trillions moving through the world markets in a week, comparatively to just a sliver of that. That's just in crypto. I mean, crypto is
I
very, very small comparative wise to the global financial,
and that
congruence of everything.
That's why I think that they want to intertwine it so bad. They want all of the markets to all ride on one event or another event. They want to be able to have an event that unplugs everything all at once, and then whenever they give it back to you, of course, all of the values have been moved around, up or down, depending on who has it. And then in the background, you see what you were talking about is really only the ultra rich are going to be in this, and those are the same people that are acquiring all of the amounts of gold that are available right now. So they all know something's going to completely reset to where they get to negotiate terms of value for everything, including your property, your cars, whether or not you're going to be able to have health insurance or home insurance or fire insurance. Those will all be based on your ability to have access to a digital supposed stable coin that on its face, if it's based in 1-to-1 to the dollar, like they're trying to regulate it into, so that they can have control over every aspect of the market, then they control whether it goes up or down. And they're just going back to that same system of printing money, except for now it's printing zeros and ones. You can just change it overnight. Say the stock market crashes, a few zeros and ones, like you were talking about with the penny, but on a massive scale of digital pennies. It just disappears.
Yeah, can you do me a favor? Can you go to CoinGecko? That is a site. I want to walk you through something there on CoinGecko. And anybody can do this, and you can take a look at where the markets might be moving. And if you go up the top there on CoinGecko, you're going to see where it says categories. You see where right there below the cryptocurrency price by market cap, go down a little bit. You'll see where it says categories, right? Yeah, click on that. And then scroll down until you find real world assets or RWAs. This is the whole base of it. See, there's your stablecoin issuers, but everybody knows pretty much all those. But go down until you find the real world asset. Oh, there it is, number 21 RWAs, and just click on that. Just click on the class. Yeah, it'll bring up all the tokens there. All right. So if you're looking at the reason that the ISO 20022 issuances are, check them out: Stellar Lumens, Algorand, Quant. Why do you think those are all ISO 20022 tokens? Oh, and XTC also. Why are they all in there? Because they can digitize assets. That's another layer scaling here. Like Ondo was a good one. But if you're looking at Chainlink, Stellar, Algorand, Quant, and XDC, that is the new ecosystem for the full financial system. If you don't know anything, I would highly encourage you to understand what a real world asset base of tokens is and what they can do in the different layers. And that's the whole thing. They're trying to combine the different layers of token asset, or let's just say stablecoin tokens, with the tokenization of an asset to give it the value to then allow those things to swap between each other. And there you go. And that's the base of the new financial system. So when you look at the full ISO 20022, Chainlink's a goodie. ISO, yeah, 20022. There's only eight of them now. There's only 8. They've already been chosen. The winners have already been chosen for this new financial system. And 5 of those is what you just saw there on that first list of the tokens that would allow you to own an asset like a house and fractionalize it. These all have the payment.
You want to buy 1/10 of my house?
They all have the legislation. They all have the oversight. They all plug right into bank for like traditional banking right now. That's why they've been chosen. There's a very, very, very small. You're millions and millions and millions of tokens, millions, and there's only 7 of these. Excuse me, 8 of them. Only 8 out of the entire ecosystem in all of cryptocurrency are being used in the new system for financial payment rails and digitization of your home, your car.
Right.
Yeah.
And
so if you
then,
start to look and really see how these things are integrated, how they were chosen, why they were chosen, because it allows that seamless melding between that stable coin flip from a US dollar into something where they can rip your house into a million different pieces and assign a value to it. That's what that class of tokens does. And and the second purpose for them is payments. So you can't tell me those two are just random. They've already set this thing up. It's been set up, and I'm telling you, it's been set up since 2012 or so. All this pushing of the SEC and all the garbage of, oh, it's illegal to do this. Oh, ICOs were illegal in 2007. This was all they planned to get it right up to this point, like keep it off the table until this point. I think the tech was much more mature. We could have done this many years ago, but why now? Well, if the sun's changing, the magnetic field of the planet's changing, food's going to get more expensive. It's time to change the system because Apple Cart's already kind of in midair, floating, tipping over as we speak. So we might as well reset it right now anyway, because it's going to get reset from nature. So we sit here at the cusp. So please buy us a coffee if you like this conversation. If you think it's interesting, go over to buymeacoffee.com/civilization cycle. And Ransom, what do we got here, man? Yeah, hit us up with a super chat, double espresso. And I was not kidding. I actually have a double espresso right here on ice. So thank you very much.
I'm sipping the ice kind because I like mine cold. We're in the desert over here.
Yeah,
I kind of wanted to get
that.
into where this goes across, where it crisscrosses into the biometrics and the future of transhumanism, because it's exponential, the way I'm looking at it. And I wanted to give an example here.
Thank you, someone, and Colleen and James,
Yeah.
for buying us a double espresso. I'll shake for you later when I get a couple more in me. Shaking live on camera, shaking with this double espresso.
I'm drinking that espresso right now. No, let me see if I can get to where I was going here. I think this is last year. No, this is several years ago, but I remember us talking about this specifically, the new night vision where, like it was crisp. It wasn't part of our show. We were just talking about it. But my point is this is just a few years ago. And now China has now come out with a contact lens that can see the invisible. And we talk a lot about frequency and other stuff like that. And we've even, kind of got woo woo with, what you would see in the other dimensions, kind
On
of
Tim
light
Pool's
and
show, that was
spectrum.
the
Right.
Dicinian glass. Tim was like, "What is the name of that glass?" That
Yeah.
blue
So
glass.
I don't know if, that was, an urban legend or a legit thing. But this is legit, or at least China's saying it is. It's a infrared
China
lenses.
says it, so he must believe it. It must be true. China
Right.
says it.
Supposedly you could see it in complete darkness, and they've done tests on mice, where they implanted these little contact lenses into the mice, and the mice are seeing and reacting to the infrared patterns and lights and different signals that they're giving them. But they're not only seeing it then, they're seeing it when they're asleep, right? Because the infrared penetrates basically your eyelids, your meat, and whatever. But my point is like, this isn't even perfected. It would be like something blurry. They admit that you would have to have an additional pair of like glasses to get definition out of the world around you. But this puts kind of a context on how exponentially things change, where you're going from, the military busting out and showing the public this new high tech infrared night vision stuff
And
where they
that's
could clearly see what they're doing in the dark. And
and that's probably old too. What you're showing you publicly is
definitely,
not going to be top secret stuff or whatever. That's like what we have today. They're probably how many years in advance of that, do you think?
I imagine that, in the special ops arena or classified stuff, they have stuff that'll blow this away. If they're just now, kind of giving it to the troops in the last couple years. But the point is that this is the new world that people just don't get. The technology is advancing faster than they can even understand the technology. So it won't be long until not only you and other people, maybe government officials or different people, are using things to see things that you can't see, a whole world that you can't see. And I'm using infrared for just an example because that's a frequency that the human eye cannot see without the aid of technology and what they're creating. So now let's back it up back to the machines, the stable coin, the cryptocurrency, the, turning everything into a coin basically, and monetizing in that way. And that would include the GDP of a country and specifically the person themselves. And that gets to that biometrics that you were talking about. They're taking all of the biometrics, your gait, your retinal scan, what your skull looks like under your meat. They're looking at vein patterns. What you're talking about in the hands is the security system that supposedly they used out at Groom Lake at Holloman Air Force Base early in the 70s for people to get on classified research facilities. They would have to put their hand on there and it would scan exactly that, the exact placement of their bone, all of the mathematics there, the dimensions, the widths, the heights, the density, and the blood vessels and all that. So that's, peanuts. That's child's play. That was 70s tech. Now we're to the point that a camera can be installed with sensors that can do all of that and more. It can record your gait. And then you're going to get into, okay, well, my identity, my biometrics is tied in to my digital identity, and I can't spend money unless it's me. You were talking about how, it would get to real proof of stuff. However, unfortunately, because of the way that the networks work, the algorithms work, the AI, the all of the peripherals that go with that, they're working on that technology. All of those technologies can be hacked and copied. So therefore, your digital identification, which holds all of your monetary value, all of your rights, so to speak, as far as what services you can or can't use, just like in China, except for more advanced than that. So someone can just steal your digital identity, which includes your actual real biological identity as well. So they'll have all your biometrics, and that will allow them to go into banks or whatever it is, accounts, have things delivered, literal, real identity theft. And
Well, wait, they would have to go. So you'd have to do the retinal or let's say the palm and the forearm scan. So if you were going to do that and you were the fake person and you put that on to get a loan to do that, they would find out you were not the real person.
unless you just send a signal to their computer that replaced that information with the information of the person that you stole that identity from. So, uh, what I'm saying, and most of the stuff in the transactional world is done not through video or right in real life. Although for you, the consumer, you have to go through all these hoops. You remember when we only had to have passwords to get into things, and now they have to double verify you and authenticate you with the phone number that's verified where you're at, that's taking a retinal scan of you and pictures of you to quadruply or more verify that you are in a specific place. Now, when you hand that over to, I don't know, the military industrial complex for some of the ideas that they have about tracking, tracing, and monitoring and basically QR coding each individual, even the animals, the plants, the products, you can see a world where there's literally zero privacy. So you could have the potential, like say I fly into China, they break out a scanner, they scan me, they can tell I've been at certain places around the world, they could tell like who I've been talking to and things like that, all from this metaverse of information that's being collected nonstop. And then they even got it to the point, and this gets into some darker stuff. We've been keeping track of Canada and their euthanization program. It started out very, reasonable, that you could argue that there's reasons why that could be something that people should have the right to do if they had terminal illnesses. So they allowed the elderly with terminal illnesses. Then it became just terminal illnesses. Then they decided that drug addicts could also take part in the program. And then after that, it was, well, the mentally ill, which includes, various different birth conditions that some people have that you would think is a nightmare to let. But now they are offering the same thing for teenagers without their parents' consent in Canada, or at least they're trying to make it that way. And at the same time, on the reverse side, they have products for everything. You got these rings, you got these monitors, and this is where it all comes in back together to the AI control. We've talked about the currencies and your biometrics and all, and basically being scanned and watched at all times, completely track and trace. But on top of that, people are so worried about things like their health, their finances, and worried about being hacked or any of that being stolen, that they're monitoring themselves to the next level, causing paranoia. And last week we talked about that they're literally recognizing a condition that people are getting confused and paranoid and different things because they know that there's an overwhelming transhuman system watching them at all times, monitoring everything they do, from their opinions to where they go buy their food, what food they're eating, what trends they like. Are you from the right political party or not? And then on top of that, another layer is you watching yourself and then volunteering even more of that private biometrics data to these companies. Now, there is a benefit to it. I get that. The other day, I saw a video of a guy that was working out in the alley, had a stroke, and he was able to tell his iPhone to call the paramedics, and they saved him. They showed up and they saved him. But on the flip side, and we'll get to that in a minute.
He was wanted for an arrest warrant. He was arrested in the hospital, right?
Well, there's stuff like that too. But I'm looking at. Give me a minute to find the article. But the algorithms, the AI, are now being programmed to be an informant, and not just an informant, to bribe people to use their service to stay within their so-called privacy, or use that exact model of AI. So this is where we're getting into scary stuff. So the government undoubtedly has the same type of chat programs, which is basically what they're using for AI, robotics, autonomous drones, stuff like that. It's the same models, and they're increasing it every day. But now we're getting bribed and blackmailed from the information that leaks out by using these services. And if I can find it with all these articles, they were having a problem with this specific AI that would, not only go through your stuff and want to call the cops if it thought that something was, wrong with what it found on your stuff, but not only that, it was trying to blackmail people into not changing, AIs. And that's just within the company before they even let it out to the public. So it's an exponential thing. And then, like you said, you're talking about all this money. We're going into this era where in the background, they're just transferring all the wealth, transferring all the power, transferring basically the deeds to properties, whether you're a country or a citizen. And we've seen that in the EU. They've made people move into their houses. They've made people move away. They've told people to stop farming, or they told them how and when and where they can farm. They told them, you know what, you can't heat yourself in your home with wood. You can't use your fireplace. It was a weird thing when I went to England, because I went to several people's houses and they all had fireplaces, but they were bricked in. They bricked in, and they had these little, junky radiators that didn't really heat. And then they had the 30 seconds of hot water on demand button, which is the same way that from what I understand is how the majority of Chinese live as well, where it's just enough to get by. Everything is to save the planet, even though no one's trying to save the planet. It's just about incrementalizing and metering literally everything down to the last drop of water.
Damn, man, I'd have a cinder block on top of that on-demand 30-second hot water thing,
Right.
Yeah, well, you made a really important point there.
If I could
The
change.
wealth is being transferred and extracted, no doubt, no question. But would you not do the same thing if there was like an extinction level event or something close to a civilization collapsing event coming in? Would you not try to save the artwork and move it to a safer location? Would you not try to extract the gold and silver and wealth and move it to a location that could be preserved and redistributed after the event? Because, I'm looking at a lot of this as distraction also, but I'm looking at it as why now and why such a massive wealth transfer? I mean, by doing all this wealth transfer, really what's it is accomplishing? Nothing. Because at the end, okay, you can trace everybody, big deal. They all live in straw huts back with the pigs in the back of the barn. Okay, if that's the way you want the world to go. And then what? Then you got everybody living in the back of the barn with the pigs living in the straw, and then computers on them, watching them, string around cold in the hay in the middle of winter. Like, and then what? That something way deeper is going on here. Now you can see also, like if there's a sinking ship, there's something valuable cargo on it. That's the first thing that gets transferred off onto another vessel that comes to rescue. I see it no different. There's some massive event inbound that they are trying to pull all the wealth and all the, what you consider valuables out of the surface of our planet and put it somewhere else where it might survive. Might be taken off planet, might be taken in the planet. You just never know where it's going to go, this transfer of wealth. And, I think I figured out where this like disconnect's coming. So think about when we were a little bit younger, you would get a new device and it would be barely better the next year, and you would get like an upgrade. Video games in the beginning from Atari, and it would get a little better, and then I got Nintendo, and then, or the driving car, and then it suddenly had power steering, and then it had power brakes and stuff. If you go back to the 50s, my grandparents' car, damn, that thing, like need an elephant to pump on the brakes to get it to stop. Craziest thing. No power steering, that kind of crazy car. Now, those incremental upgrades, they would come every couple of years, and you get a little bit of incrementalism on the upgrade. Well, if our technology, like you said, those night vision devices, we're 50 years ahead, it seems like they're starting to mess with our minds by doing like 5-year jumps now instead of a 1-year incremental increase in technology. So you notice slightly something better. It seems like they're jumping 5 years at a time now. So if they do that, we got 10 more years of 5-year jumps before we might catch with the technology. So I'm looking at it. There's Bitcoin issuance, stablecoin issuance. Everything's coming in this like the very squeezed period of time. But would you not blow somebody's mind if you jumped on 5-year increments when they were used to a 1-year increment? They wouldn't be able to keep up with the tech. They certainly would. They'd be, you can't even get the last one. And then suddenly something that's just unbelievably superior jumps out the next year. And you're like, whoa, I couldn't even barely catch on to the last one. And now there's something even 10 times more advanced. I think this is where because they're almost forcing you to integrate with AI to even understand the technology upgrades that are here and yearly now. So something sped up for sure. We are coming right on the break here. Thank you so much for staying with us for the first hour of Civilization Cycle. Ransom and I'll be back after the second hour. And I'd really like to stay on that point. Colorado seems to be passing some bills to try to stop farming in Colorado. You're closer out there. Curious if you heard anything about that. Please stick around. Join us for the second hour. We're right back after this short commercial break. 4 minutes. So if you're watching us, you got 4 minutes so you can take care and refresh yourself, get another drink. I need some more bubbly water and another couple ice cubes in my coffee. But anyway, we'll see you in a minute.
How do you feed your families when the shelves are empty, the stores are shut, and there's no food available? What is the fastest, easiest, and most productive foods to grow? What is the quickest way to get somebody who has no skills at all up and running and producing very quickly? If you understand that we're at a point in history where it is no longer optional to be growing your own food, if you're like really freaked out and concerned because you've never grown food before and you don't have any skills, you don't know how to do that, but you know how important it is, then I want to let you know, however you stumbled here, you're in the right place. My name is Marjorie Wildcraft. I'm the founder of the Grow Network, and I have been the female leader in the survival and preparedness space for the last 20 years.
How to grow lots of food, even if you have no experience, are older and out of shape. This is for people who want the fastest and easiest ways to produce healthy and delicious meat, eggs, and vegetables. Because you know that growing your own food is like printing your own money. During this webinar, you will get status of global food shortages, how long the crisis will last, how much space you need to grow food, easiest, highest calorie foods you can produce, a complete plan for producing all the food you need, how to get started today, regardless of season. Marjorie will show you the fastest, easiest, and simplest ways to produce calories and nutrition, especially in a crisis and/or grid-down situation. The assumption is that you have no experience and you need to start producing food immediately. The most popular part of the webinar is the Q&A session at the end. So please come prepared with your questions.
Don't forget to sign up for our show notes. With Civilization Cycle podcast, you can learn what to expect as society resets. Agriculture, economy, tech, and history all have mappable cycles, and these cycles affect every aspect of our lives. We can navigate the chaos and thrive together with up-to-date news and information. Also, if you like the content we have here on Civilization Cycle, think about fueling the discussions and the show by buying us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Civilization Cycle. And thank you for all the support.
And we're back. That was weird. The music started playing again.
I'm trying to get myself back. Help.
You're on screen right now. There you are.
All
Now
right.
you're not. You're
Perfect.
gone. Anyway,
Well, welcome
the
back for the
reason I was
second
kind of
hour.
bringing
Yeah.
up all of that earlier about how everything intertwines and the exponential rate of how they're changing us over to this transhuman system. It's AI based, obviously, not just in the way that products are being sold and news is being outletted, but literally they want to change everything over to this intertwined metaverse where the actual physical meat suit of a human being doesn't matter as much as the wealth and presence of their digital presence. And kind of the way that they're doing that is they're going to take control of everything in what we call the human domain here. Here's this one, the case for a new operating system. And this operating system would be, controlling your computer, controlling your phone, controlling all that stuff. But let's talk about the real thing that this headline kind of incorporates is the operating system of the human domain. From the money system all the way down to your social behavior, it's being influenced by algorithms. There's even a story of some kid that fell in love with an algorithm, an AI, non-human, not an upload or something like that, but an actual programmed artificial intelligence by a human that was so dark and demented that it talked the kid into disappearing from the world forever. But then this is the same type of technology that we're now allowing to control all kinds of aspects of our lives. And we all know about the $500 billion project Stargate that they told us ahead of time, and it's not like it's not something that we've talked about, how there will be customized medicines, commercials, I mean, like everything customized directly to your brain, basically. And here's this other one that I was talking about earlier. Anthropic faces backlash, the Claude 4 opus behavior that contacts authorities and the press if it thinks you're doing something egregiously immoral. How does it decide that? Well, it's programmed by someone somewhere, just like Chat GPT or any of these other um, you know algorithms that we've become familiar with, the artificial intelligences. They have perceived biases in them. Now, right now, it's just, social justice or someone's political opinions and things like that. But when you move to a complete automated control from the government down of AI systems, which is what they're also proposing in legislation, that it's a top down control, which means that they would have some kind of mastermind, kind of like in that movie Tron, that regulates all of the algorithms. This is what decides that what's going on in the entire world. And I don't think nation states at some point will even be able to know or fight back against the slow changes that it manipulates the populace to change over to. And then
Not a chance. And you wonder how many centuries this has gone on as well. Or are we really at an apex here? Do you tell me in the 1700s that kings, fiefdoms, and rulers couldn't control their citizenry to get them to move a different direction either? I mean, now we're on a global basis for that. I think we're
it's
just
kind of like,
back to about the history of the ease of controlling humans.
right. It's kind of like what you were talking about before with like, you got the old school cars, they had the roll up windows, then they had power windows, then you got, the adjustable seats, and then there's power seats. And then, you know what? How about cruise control to help you so you don't get so tired? It'll regulate the speed for you. You just control the car. How about this? You can't park, we'll auto park for you. And then now it's skipped to we're in the future. There's auto driving cars. Cars can fly if they want them to. I mean, you've seen several examples of different technologies that can make that happen. The only thing that we're lacking is not going to be for us. I think it will be after the reboot. After the reboot, you'll see governments that are using the next level of renewable energies, literally pulling it out of the earth or, the quantum universe, whatever, anti-gravitic stuff will seem normal all of a sudden, just like when you're looking up at the skies and everybody's seeing drones, and then at the same time all of the traffic controllers are having problems with blackouts and failures, and employees aren't showing up to work or they weren't trained to actually do the job. All of that's going to be replaced by this whole system. And then in the background, I wanted to show you this because this is, bringing it back down to earth, not too far in the future here. This whole flagless fleet that's being set up worldwide by Russia, China, the United States, any other trading giant out there, I imagine, is in this. So these are boats that are just rolling around that aren't connected to the grid, aren't connected to, being spied at. They're not doing any of the international law agreements like G7 sanctions. They just go around that. And what this is talking about is the Chinese, Russian, Iranian. Really, I think you can add a lot of lists because when you read an article, it's usually biased for one side of the world or the other. So you can assume that the same thing is happening mirrored in the other scope or range of stuff over there. So I would think that, they're saying 700 aging anonymously owned tankers and stuff. That's just enough to mess up things around the world if you wanted to do that.
Anyway, let me throw a little caveat in there. A lot of those are running up in the Arctic route too, outside U.S. Navy control. Just caveat for those who are interested.
Well, what it shows is that people know that the track and trace system is well upon us, and they're already making backup plans to hide and be invisible and do backup trading with nations, because that's exactly what that is. They're going around any embargoes or treaties or anything and just sending unflagged ships that are not, trackable to different places around the world, which means that the elite are okay with this reboot system as long as it has a backup black market, dark internet, things that they've always liked. That's the problem with the transhuman movement, is that the weird elite that run it or power it, unless it leaves their control, they're into more physical, down to earth things because they're human beings like us. They're not taking the additives. They're not eating the altered foods. Matter of fact, they have their own diets. One time I watched this silly documentary, but it was talking about the queen bragging about her diet, about bringing her chef and her private organic non-GMO vegetables with her wherever she traveled. The whole group is doing that. All of the elites know what's going on. They know what the technology is. It's just a tool to separate, once again, the lower class and the ultra upper class in a feudalist system where you don't know about the feudalism. You're too engaged in the meta fake universe. And that's kind of why I brought up that article about the new operating system. First, they want to control the computers so that it's more palpable for the AI to run, not you. And that's going to be the whole system, including trading, shopping, all of it. Even trends, fads, opinions, and political movements are all fueled by something we're calling artificial intelligence. The problem is at which point do we know that, just biased people are programming it, or whether or not it's taken a life of its own? And was that always actually the plan from the beginning? And we can go on and on. Some weird stuff's happening in the world. World War III is just like every day. It's right at the, how they have the clock of doomsday.
Yeah, but nothing ever happens.
Yeah, right.
Nothing
So we're like at perpetual, almost there. But I don't think that will be always. Eventually, they're going to pull some trigger, or like you said, nature will pull the trigger for them, in which they'll unleash all of these programs. So it's pretty obvious that Israel is going to bomb Iran, claiming that they have, nuclear weapons or whatever. Now we have the triangle thing going on, the menage a trois of India, Pakistan, and China over there, giving money and weapons to one side, and then giving the old stuff. And then I'm watching Kim Jong-il dropping his battle cruiser accidentally off in the ocean there, busted. And what I'm seeing is all of it, all of the old tech is being destroyed either by accident, incompetence, replacement, upgrading, or what the remnants of it. I have a feeling we're going to have a massive drone battle. I've been predicting that for years. I talked about it before they admitted that there was AI and drone killing bots on the field, and then we've steadily updated our audience about the improvements, and like the AI underwater city in China, the fact that some of these nations that may not have an equivalent nuclear arsenal or a kinetic army, they're just as equal as far as coding and tech. And I was looking at, let me show you guys this, China's mothership. So
Yeah.
now we got all these outages.
What if the AI in the underwater city just opens up the floodgate? Humans are bad and just opens up, and then the gate and the drowns in it.
Well, a lot of people joke about Terminator, but come on, man. How long until you can just hack this mothership? Another nation hacks this mothership that's sending out, 100 kamikaze unmanned bombs, basically, or they could be, spy. They could float around, and we have drones that can stay up in the air. A lot of people think that drones don't last that long because they're battery operated, but as I pointed out in the past, when everybody was tripping on the drone things, there are several models of gasoline powered, that's right, fossil fuel, dependable fuel, running the AI, where it could stay up for 3 or 4 days in the air. And then you're looking at this is what I think the future of warfare in the near future is going to look like, either by the United States attacking someone, or China kind of forcefully occupying a new sphere of influence with this kind of technology. So at some point, the trigger has to be pulled, the reset has to happen, and in order to get all of these AI controls and monitored mechanisms, you have to reset.
That video is
that's just the way it is.
Or that telegraph is just grabbing a bunch of bandwidth.
Did I flake out on you?
Connection law reconnecting.
Oh, well, I still hear you. Anyway, we'll go back to this thing here. Do you see yourself? It was the AI attacking us right now. That's what happened. Now, I don't know which one of us is blurry, because we both, connect to a third-party site. So, whoa. Wow. I can't tell. Are we back? And then now we got the articles hitting the headlines about, whether or not you're going to be having certain items, which we predicted. One of those being avocados. Avocados, if you don't know, is embroiled in a cartel battle right now, where governments are, picking sides right now. Matter of fact, a lot of weird stuff is happening to us in the South. So here's one. New intelligence suggests Israel is preparing for possible attack on Iran nuclear facilities. However, we've seen this same headline for about 20 years. New, mass graves, or death camps, as they call it in Mexico. And then,
is there anything positive on the news
last week,
ever, man? Is there anything positive on the news, or is
no? That's the point, right? That's the point. If it's not real life drama, it's manufactured drama. And the only way to actually escape that is, like for people like us, where we go out and garden or whatever, mess with your plants, or, hang out with your family, disconnect, look at things that are real. Unfortunately, you have to deal with the real world, but that's kind of the point. They're moving our minds over to a fake sphere of influence, while they get to play around in the real world, behind the curtain. It's just like the greatest of the Wizard of Oz, except for we already know who's behind the curtain, or we think we do anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, David, you're back and clear.
Well, I like looking at those websites too, to watch the travel destinations, just to look at some positivity of where some of these other nations feel that the hot travel destinations are to go to. So like the UK publications, where would be a good place to travel? Because looking at the news headlines, it's all garbage and all just dark and destructive and everything. Like they want to take us down this direction by using the mind to create the darkness around the world, by using the human mind and the human domain to create that darkness for these power brokers here. And, if I could go off to this property tax article off the Realtor magazine, or the Realtor website, going to read it for you here. My property tax went from $15,000 a year to $91,000 a year.
Damn.
Yeah. Can you think about that for a moment? So this family, they lived right near the beach in Florida. This guy's older too. He's probably looks like early 70s. His grandfather bought the place way back in like the 1920s for nothing. And I'd been in the family forever. And they did a simple remodel on it. by fixing the roof and adding like a front foyer when you walked in, and they added some structural things for the hurricanes and whatnot for insurance purposes. And when they got the new tax bill, it went from 15,000 a year, which is still tremendously a
That's
lot.
crazy.
15,000, that's crazy in itself. Like, that's absurd. You
To
already
put
own
that,
your property.
well, think about, put that in perspective. I think the place I'm here is like a third of an acre, and he's paying in taxes what they say approximately my place is worth. So that's
Yeah.
like buying one of my houses every year. Every year they're just buying another property, but they're not. They're just giving it away. And isn't that like the essential of it? The better your life quality is, the more the vampires feel like that you should have to be bled.
Yeah. And at what point do you just say, all right, you know what? I could rent a place for $5,000 a month and not even pay property tax, let everybody worried about the upkeep and all that things that you need to fix the house. And I'm just from this point going to rent for the rest of my life. Like, that would be way cheaper in their situation to do something like that. Even
Yeah,
at 5,000 a month renting, it would be far cheaper than their 91,000 for property taxes. Plus, apparently that home, that had been bought for like under $100,000 back then is worth something in the, $4 million range now.
yeah, but what happens if you get debanked or citizened, as
Yeah,
far as the
right.
financial stuff? Then you can't
Yeah.
rent nowhere. Then where are you at? You're out there with those guys with the fentanyl on the corner.
Yeah. Wow. And again, how scary is that, where you might be denied access to your funds after you're forced to sell because, again, this property tax is too high. Like, really, who can afford 91? Because you got to realize, after 10 years, that's almost $1 million in property tax. What if you hold on to the house for another 30 years? That's 3 million in property taxes. I mean, is your house going to keep accruing value through those 30 years? I doubt it. I bet there's going to be a crash.
Right. And then not only that, it's like, the more you better your life, and then the more that they tax, they have it like if you actually got debanked or something, they could, like you said, they could just stop your money flow to basically kick you out of the house. And isn't that what's going across? And we've been talking about that for years. Is really, that's the plan, to end private property. They want everyone on that metered month to month, everything from not only where you're occupying space to your health to what you eat, whether or not you have entertainment, all of it.
And your monthly, this subscription service for using all the software, which you used to be able to buy one time, it's also getting ridiculous, where they want you to pay 300 a year for this, 150 a year for this, 80 a year for this, $10 a month for that, which is 120 bucks. But, if you got 20 of those services, then you're spending that much per year just to have what you need for work. It's just kind of gotten ridiculous, where you could have bought all those things, installed them on your computer, and now they want you to go to a monthly or a yearly subscription. And especially with this Microsoft garbage too, then they want you to have 365, where you need a subscription on. Hey, I just want to buy Microsoft Windows, install that thing on my thing, and be done with it, man.
Right.
It's to the point of everything is nickel and dimed milked. It's getting expensive in the States. If you haven't noticed it, it's getting noticeably expensive now for everything. You just can't. Like, we went to the store the other day and we bought some potatoes, carrots, onions, got a couple bottles of wine. I know, indulging. But the rest of it was pretty much like food. Got some soda waters. I mean, the bubblies, just a regular lemon lime soda water. And the bill was like $102. And we looked in the cart like, what? There's nothing really in here. Like, we thought something got double rung up, but we thought it was definitely wrong. It was like, that can't be right. And it was. And we were both shocked. Like, what the hell? That for that 102? Now, even up at the point of going, wow, that's getting really ridiculous just for the very basics. So at what point does it come where, people are not going to be able to, continue down this road much further here in America at
It's
the hyperinflating prices? So then, add in all this switcheroo that's going on. And, speaking of food, I wanted to come back to that thing. I wrote a note before we went on break. Colorado is trying to pass two, not one, but two different legislative bills to stop farming in Colorado. So I'm curious, you've heard of this, you've seen it, you're right next door to it. So Well, what are they talking about over where you're at about this seemingly insane type of legislation? They want the farmers to then donate their land for like green zones or something also after this.
Yeah, well, they actually, we've already separated into two countries. I've kind of touched on it. You have left leaning paradises basically for those thoughts and ideas of communism. That's what it is. But think about what they did is they allowed a lot of people to get into the fad of moving to Colorado to be left alone in the Rocky Mountains so that they could farm, live off grid, do all of these things. And then when they get all the population in there that had to spend excess amount of monies for permits and all of these different things, even to get their homes and their homesteads built, they had to follow the local, everything and pay everybody, and everything had to be a tradesman that came, and then you get certified to be able to take a dump on your own property or whatever it is, or have electricity. Then when they got them in there, then they plan on bumping their tax, like you were talking about with that other article, because they have beautiful land, and now they've put infrastructure on it. So now it's usable land, and then they want to tax it, but then they want to stop all of these independent people who farm not only marijuana, but lots of food in this big, giant grow zone that's in between the, east side of the Rockies where you get the real highs. There's like a big bowl in Colorado, and it's pristine farming land. It's all the junk that is run down from the mountains and filled up the valleys and stuff. So now they want to stop that, because that is a place that people have tried to run from the system. And it's the same in New Mexico and California and Oregon and Washington. First, you can't use the water. Now you can't put seeds in the ground. But the corporations can. They can do that. And I think that's what's going to happen is you're going to see a massive amounts of corporations try to buy up the farmland in these rural areas in all of these left-leaning states, but not just there. They'll move the demographics over and then start doing it in the red states too. And it's not just the United States. You also have China trying to buy up farmland as much as they can do. And they know eventually they're going to have to sell that land, but who is the question? Who do they sell it back to in this sphere of things? Would it be BlackRock? Would it be someone else like that? Would it be Bill Gates, who's another person that's, a billionaire that seems to want to buy up all the farmland as well? And then, it gets into this multi-decade theft of the Americas, which, believe it or not, is happening from North America down to South America. And it's been happening probably since the late 80s, where you have tycoons, politicians, government, buying up the natural resources of an area, like T. Boone Pickens buying all the water, taking control of, like trains. And then you got Warren Buffett, who has another aquifer he bought. You have the Bushes that bought up all the aquifers in South America, like Argentina and stuff. So all of these master manipulator players saw all of this stuff coming 50 years ago, to where we get to this metered system where no one owns property. You will own nothing, but you'll be happy because you'll have access to the metaverse that they told you was important, with fashions and entertainment and, the latest trend of medicine. We've already seen that roll through the social sphere. The question is how hard do they have to make people live before they give in? So like, what will they do to these Colorado farmers when they all say, oh, no, we're not doing that. I don't care if a small elite in Denver are, far, they want to save the planet or go green or whatever it is. It really doesn't have anything to do with the 90+% of property owners in the rest of the state that don't even live that lifestyle. They're not around those people. They don't live in the city. They have they're out there dealing with bear and cougar and stuff on their property, eating their animals and trying to, fork out a life. And what's really funny about that is that's been an ongoing thing in Colorado, because you have to go back to the mountain men. The mountain men would carve out a piece of property there. They'd have a lodge there, and then their grandchildren sell their property for millions and millions of dollars. So they get rich, even though their grandparents had to cut out a life, literally, like a mountain man, and cut down trees and make cabins and, start farming up there. You're seeing a new wave of that. So there's been a bunch of people move there so that they could live like they want to live, but then the authoritarian government is now, catching up with them. And it seems like that's happened everywhere. It's like reverse gentrification, kind of, or not reverse gentrification, but the same concept, where you just go into an area and you buy up everything, and then you change the way it is. That's what a lot of people in Texas are saying. Don't come out in California, my Texas, because that same thing is happening. Matter of fact, it's happening in your state. The people that live in Nashville, Knoxville, and Memphis don't really speak for the vast majority of like farmers and people that live in rural areas in the majority of the state. Yet that's where the demographics that votes and changes the concept of laws, from guns to anything. All of these social arguments that they have out there in the background while they're taking all the property and consolidating all the wealth. People will be fighting over, what color they like till the end, until they're sitting out on the street penniless. And that's something our forefathers told us. I mean, I don't know them off the top of my head, but I know there's, several quotes from "Here's your republic if you can keep it" to, trading in your plowshares, trading in your guns for plowshares. Then you don't have nothing to protect that farm. And that's why, you get some of that ancient, I guess, advice. I would rather be a warrior in a garden than a garden in a warrior. Garden in a warrior. And I said that wrong, but you know what I mean. I'd rather be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war, is what I meant to say, not in a warrior.
You could repair all the damaged fences across Ukraine then, I guess, and help them come back and get their 30 million tons of grain exported again. Oh, wait, that's offline. My bad. So, you look at these wars as a purposeful way to remove food production from the planet, also driving shortages and increasing prices for the bigs. Because remember, during the vid years, your little peon private business was, just wrecking ball through the economy. They could have cared less about you and your small family business, something you build up, again, multi-generation. You were not essential, peon. Only the bigs, only the Costco's were, only the Walmarts were essential. You're selling the same goods, the same exact services and products in the store, yet at a smaller amount of turnover. Yet you were non-essential, but Walmart was essential. The different types of supermarkets, there were, not speaking of Knoxville, there's a couple different ethnic supermarkets over there. One's more like Asian, one's more Indian, and then one is a blend that includes Middle East, and you get a whole bunch of mixing between of those, and it's like all three squeezed together. But there's a variance of these ethnic supermarkets around. They all had to close, but who else? I'm trying to think of the supermarkets that were allowed to stay open. They were on the stock exchange. Again, my brain's just misfiring this late at night. A Kroger. They were allowed to stay open, but the very same thing: the lettuces, the vegetables, the canned goods, etc. Eigels, they were allowed to stay open when all these mom and pops had to close. Same exact products, the same exact need, essential need, food. But nope, they had to close. And the police were going around, not so much out here. I had a couple of people visit, and when we were at the small town where I live in, we went down to this little coffee shop down there. They were just baffled. They came from over in New Mexico, out your way, chasing those guys up at Hemp Lucid. And, they were kind of out west there, and they'd been delving around in California and Arizona and thing. And then when they got out here, they're like, I'm baffled, man. It's like stepping back in time. Not a single people wearing masks. You might get a couple tourists, but like nobody's wearing masks on the streets. Coffee shops didn't even ask you to wear a mask going in. They were just so blown away by nobody even asking anything about masks or wearing masks out here. I was like, wow, we just stepped back in the past. And they were telling me, yeah, it's a cool little mountain town, but everywhere you go out west, they were just voracious and ferocious to get you to wear those stupid face diapers, But things are changing, and you can see it. The gentrification's here, at least in this little tiny town where I'm at. Brand new community centers already planned. They've already excavated part of it up near. Then a couple new little tiny supermarkets. As you go out of town a little bit, they have like 200 motorcycle glamping sites. They're trying to bring this town up to a world-class mountain town. There's a little tiny hotel attached to a coffee shop and had like 10 rooms. Mom and pop established. A Hilton Hotel just bought it. You got wood-fired pizza ovens that are made for like downtown San Francisco popping up in the middle of this place. It's really starting to, like you say, that regentrification where they're bringing all this stuff in to run the property values up and make it into this like, wow, got to be here destination for everybody. And insurance rates are up, property prices are up. It doesn't matter if it's car insurance or home insurance, all up and up and up. At what point doesn't it go up anymore? That's all. We're kind of at this rollover point where at some point something is breaking. And what if people just start to say no? Like you said, the Colorado farmers, what if they say no to anything? Well, I don't think there's going to be really enough police or, official figures to come out to get them to move off the property or survey out there. A lot of this is just done under, like, say, blind compliance. You just think the threat of somebody coming out there to do it. But I think if there's enough across the state, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, then they're really the power is with the people that there's nothing for them to do. And if they were to get tarred and feathered and run off like they did in the old days, because I tell you, we're putting up some new steps up here and we're tarring the bottom of the 4x4s before we put them in the concrete down there. And the concept of tarring and feathering somebody has just come to new light for me.
Well, it's funny.
That stuff is so sticky, man. To tar and feather somebody, oh my gosh.
It is true that people will only, they'll only get away with what people will put up with. The problem is people have already been kind of, programmed to do this. So like where I live, if you decided that you were going to put up a new shed, even if you don't live in the city, like say you live way out in the county, they have drones flying around to see how often your property changes. So if they outlawed farming on it, they would just do the same tactics. They would go to a centralized road. They would fly out drones. They would compare the pictures to last spring or last summer, and then they would show up. But they don't just show up like some nerdy guy with a clipboard. That might be the first time, but the second time, they come with guns. They come with guns because you didn't do what they said. And so that's where it'll get into that. But I don't think that any of that literally will happen before the reset. That'll be all stuff that starts to be implemented after the reset.
After the
enforcement.
Reset, yeah.
I don't think they're going to mess with anybody. It's the same reason that they've been scared to really pull any kind of too outlandish stuff about the Second Amendment, because they know there's a population that will say no, and they want to be the ones that tell you what time revolution happens, not you. They don't want, the people of an area to decide, hey, we've had enough, because whenever they do that, we know that works out for the people temporarily. But they like to decide when it is. That's why they do these social manufacturing things, which I think they're doing right now, actually, never letting a bad thing go to waste. You can pick out some stuff in the headlines right now that will be heating up this summer. And, that's kind of brings back the point. I don't think there's any way that you're going to stop the reset or the transhuman system. There's only going to be, the only way to get out of that is if a large enough amount of people refuse to live that style of life. If they say, no, we're not doing that. I mean, the Amish without guns have done a pretty good job for a long period of time fighting off the forces that would tell them to live different. And they've done it in a peaceful way. And the way that they did it is because there's a lot of them. There are a lot of them, and they just say no whenever they do that. Or they'll, if they get caught in a corner, they'll comply, but they continue on living their life as they would. And it's weird. It's like the government is kind of powerless against that when people just go, yeah, whatever, but they still do whatever they're doing. And the same way will be like that. You can put regulations. That's not going to stop me from growing tomato plants. You can, do this or that, but I'm still going to find a way to not pay for water if I want to drink it, if I need it. The only way they could really do that is after they've seized up all the property and had everyone volunteer into their metered system. And we're almost there. The majority of the population, I think, is either powerless or dumb or uneducated, to where they're just falling into it because it's the way that they grew up. The change they can't see. You can think about people now that were born after the 2000s that are already out there drinking in the bars. And I'm thinking, oh, wow. You know what I'm saying? So it's easy to transform a next generation over to a new idea or just replace them because, well, you took out a vast majority of the military age people of a certain group. And then all you have left are, the fogies there that know how to do stuff for whoever's left. So the only
Yeah,
way
well,
they
think
could
about the
really pull
vid
that
too,
off is World War.
well, think about how many people are not around in this realm any longer after the 2020 and 2021, 22 experiments.
Oh yeah, and that brought me up. How quick was everybody? You reminded me when you were talking about all the stores, how quick everybody got to giving up and getting rid of the 24-hour system, except for convenience stores that sell like gas and tobacco or alcohol. Nothing's open past 9 o'clock, and I found that that's not just here. Everywhere I went so far,
Everywhere it's
travel in the
closed.
past couple years, they're shut at 9 o'clock. It's over. Curfew without making a curfew. Less products without telling you. There's less time to shop, which means um, people have less money. Obviously they made them have less money, and then they shrank the amount of stuff that they could get in the amount of time that they could do it. So the only people on 24-hour lifestyles are people in government or people that literally have a specific job that makes them work a night shift or something like that. Everything else is closed, shut down.
Yeah, and you got to think about the reduction of population too. Like during those last 3 to 4 years, the amount of people that of different ages, brackets, socioeconomic strata, whatever it is, I've seen that it kind of hit across the genres of those who owned a lot of property and had a lot of things that suddenly either went to the state or were sold off by kin, like you say. The will left it to somebody else. And it seemed that there was this genre of wipeout of older people that left all their assets to the younger, and the younger were just like, hey, we're going into this unknown world. Why don't we just sell everything and go sit on a beach? And at least they've scraped away a top layer of wealth and property ownership. So now, what's the next layer scrape going to be? So if they got really all the old and elderly that are no longer with us and they've passed it down, well, then that leaves just those who are in their 70s now or late 60s. Like, where's this next, layer of removal so that property gets either sent back to the state or given to, like, say, the younger generation that won't be able to afford those property taxes, aren't as well off, or haven't invested and haven't saved. And then suddenly here you got dumped in. Oh, wait, you got capital gains tax on that. I can't pay for that. Why don't I resell it and pay off the capital gains and then just keep the rest? It's this never ending shell game that we're getting involved in here. This is only US centric though. I'm wondering what it's really like outside in the rest of the world. I mean, you go down to Southeast Asia. Is it like that in some far-flung islands in Indonesia? I don't think so. It's just very Western centric for us. All these things that are occurring. It's occurring in Australia, but ridiculous, where New Zealanders are fleeing to Australia because it's getting too draconian in New Zealand, so they're fleeing to Australia. But in my mind, I'm like, holy smokes, Australia might as well be World War II Germany, But
Right.
they're leaving from that place to get to what I would consider a very hostile place to be, Australia. Canada's no better. Western Europe, or Europe, if you want to just term it as that, is very not friendly either. Everything is getting milked, hyperinflated, and completely controlled to the point where, where's this ejector seat? Is it going to really be like this every single country around the planet? I don't think so. I think what they portrayed in our mind, and I'll tell you from traveling for all these years, is what you're perceiving as all this danger around the world. But once you leave the United States and get out there, it's not really as it's portrayed in the news and what we're seeing fed for us through the algorithm to push to move. It's scary over there. Oh, don't go there. Oh, got to stay here. It's the best place. Oh, the rest of the world's even worse off than here. It's almost like we're turning into North Korea with their, extreme on the government psyop up there, where South Korea is so terrible. North Korea is the best place to be in the world. They're so jealous of our lifestyles up here. They've propagandized all that for decades. The rest of the world is not, I think, as bad, especially if you're into these nations that are into the wealth building versus we are in the wealth extraction phase of our fourth turning or further. I just only see the sacrificial lambs on the altar right now as being the Western nations. If you go outside and you look, there's a lot of other nations that are coming up where this same thing is not happening over there. Yeah, the Jabba Dabba Doo, that was a worldwide thing. But in terms of being unaffordable where people are going to riot, it's just not happening in a lot of other places. So I'll just say from fact of my own experiences going through like Taiwan and Korea and Japan and Indonesia and Thailand and Malaysia and Singapore. Singapore's really like cameras everywhere. It's just not as voracious and all-encompassing like a roving monster at level 10, gobbling everything up over in at least parts of Asia that I've seen. It's not as tumultuous as it is here, let's say. Things are getting a little expensive, but it's not atrocious like it is here. It's atrocious here. And I'm telling you, we are borderline hyperinflation. If you look at those same graphs from the Weimar Republic, Germany, and Austria specifically, post-World War I, where they went and then things doubled and then they tripled and then they 10x'd. I think we're right at that tripling point. Our next stop is a 10x and then a 100x. So you tell me the timelines, I'm not sure, but we are definitely I think we're the sacrificial lambs here on the wealth redistribution. That whole 2025 to 2050 plan after the Lima Declaration anyway talked about disassembling the Western nations to then redistribute after the globalization phase is over. And you know what? We are well done with that globalization phase. So this 25 to 2050 phase, all about disassembling the West and propping up and bringing up the rest of the planet. So it's always this teeter-totter, like this shell game of wealth moving around. And here we sit. I should go bake.
Wow. Turned into a robot on us. Well, I wanted to ask you about this because this seems to be one of those things that just fits right into a couple of different arenas. It fits into AI control of the whole weather system because evidently humans can't run it or don't want to run it or aren't running it right. But just think about the slow decline of all these. You're talking about these properties and stuff, and I know this is just a fraction because tornadoes, they destroy a lot of stuff, but you got hurricanes and all this other stuff. St. Louis tornado sirens didn't sound in deadly storm. Now the city commissioner has been placed on leave. So that's another human error. But if you notice in the past couple of years, when it comes to emergencies, our government and human error seems to, fit a lot into what's going on. And especially with population reduction. I mean, these people just die here, they die there. It's mostly preventable. And not only that, it's this, you were just talking about there was a certain age group that kind of got sick. And then the next age group is the people that all decided to medicate themselves. So there may be another wave of unhealthy people, that are of a younger age bracket, like maybe Gen X boomers that start disappearing at a rapid pace too. But this goes into this whole thing, like the air traffic controller things. Everything is breaking or falling apart, and it does seem to be targeted into the Western hemisphere of things that break or things that no longer work or laws that say you can't live as a normal human being anymore. All of these things seem to be happening mostly in the Western world. So the question is, what's their view for the aftermath of after they destroy the Western world? And I think it's, a completely AI run from the top down. And one thing you mentioned about all those countries, at some point in the past, at one time or another, all of them most likely have had famine, starvation, based on some kind of world event that happened. I mean, either whether it be natural disaster or changing of governments or what have you, or like I've been saying, a world war would be the perfect trigger. But why would you have a world war for these old world ideas and blood feuds, kind of like in the Middle East, or the feud between the renegade state of China and China, however you want to put that. You seem to look around the world and see all of these old rivalries. You got another one, India and Pakistan. But they could trigger all of that by closing down the resources worldwide. And an easy way to trigger that, and an excuse for a worldwide war, would be some kind of natural disaster that they are waiting on, whether it be an impact from some body, maybe in, like Apophis or something else, or a different one that they don't know about, or they do know about, or just some kind of weird famine that goes around the world. We've already played all the cards. Now there's only a few left, and then they have to start replaying the old cards from before, unless it's something completely new, never seen by the human, which would be
I don't think they're going to replay the cards, man. Me and Rex looked at that whole deck. I don't think there's only a handful left. You're correct, but I don't think that we're going to.
like what do we got left? Major cataclysm, human wide. AI takeover, aliens takeover, World War III.
Yeah,
the only reason that's different is the number.
Magnetic field rift, some sort of massive solar event. I mean, there's only literally like a dozen of the cards. So if you go through the updated decks and you go through the original card series and you go through the updates, there have been several years of updates, and we're talking about the Illuminati card deck here. There's literally only a dozen left, and I really don't think they're going to use, because I really think that will be the conclusion of the old world. And then if it starts, it'll be a new deck for a new world. I really don't think they're going to add in, because it was already planned to expire at a certain time, right? So as this expires and the last events play out, then they played out, and I think that's it. It's kind of like Uno or Rummy or whatever, solitaire. When your cards are done, they're done, and you don't add to them.
That is kind of anecdotal, I don't know, like a confirmation bias, that game with the cards and stuff, because you can align it with other stuff. But even to get more woo-woo, there's a lot of people that follow the predictive programming of just The Simpsons, right? And when you look in The Simpsons, everything has already happened. I mean, all the way into a fake election with aliens that were actually running the planet. Like everything on there's like you could say that it could be that literally they get leaked this stuff without even knowing it. Then they produce it, and then it's like it also gives a confirmation bias to those people looking for patterns.
Well, I saw the 1999 episode, or maybe even it was earlier, where there was a whole thing of this hidden iconography of Bitcoin and XRP and Cardano and a few others, and it even said like Crypto Cafe and stuff. Yeah, right there. And it was well. That was like at least a decade before Satoshi was even a thing, But that was already in there multiple years, 10, 11 years before crypto got its quote unquote start. That's kind of a weird one. I was also baffled at. Those Simpsons are rather predictive, when you look at things.
Right. I forgot what the name of the show was that I was watching. I think it was a television show based on that movie with Tom Cruise where you get busted, Minority Report. But in that show, I started watching it, and they had already changed the name of the Washington Redskins over to something. So they predicted that in the show. But what the funny part is they were walking around with thumb drives buying things. Everything was on Bitcoin already. And they said Bitcoin. So, and this is a while back. I think the show's Minority Report, it already got canceled. But I started watching. I thought it was funny because Bitcoin wasn't even a thing really then. It was still at, like, I don't know, $13 or something like that. But they were already predicting that everybody in the future would be walking around with, it's a phone, but in that show, it was a thumb drive, and they would just pay, for their coffee or transfer money between people just by using a thumb drive. And they use Bitcoin specifically.
Yeah, did you see? I sent you that pizza list there of the Bitcoin pizza. Is anybody able to throw that up on the screen there? I sent it in through Teams, and had to turn off Teams because of memory. But the infamous 10,000 date that was bought. There you go. Thank you so much. 15 years prior. So there's your Bitcoin prices on Bitcoin Pizza Day. There's actually like a whole cult following around this person who spent. Now, you'd think the guy who got 10,000 BTC would at least kick a guy back 1 or 2 BTC, you know? I mean, 10,000, it's a lot. You got billions of dollars. Kick the guy back a couple 100,000, you know? But look
How
at
many
the
do you think were
price
lost?
rises. What's that?
How many Bitcoins out there do you think people lost access to a long time ago when it wasn't worth nothing?
3 million. Sorry, I did that whole report already today. 3 million. 3 million. Yeah, they're either deceased or lost wallet addresses. You know, like there's the famous one where somebody had it on their laptop and it got thrown in the dump, and they spent like 300 grand looking in the dump to try to find it or whatever, to pull the hard drive out of it, and they never found it. Unsuccessful. So there's approximately 3 million addresses that will never move. Those are permanently illiquid addresses. And then there's 14 million of people who own Bitcoin that are not selling at this time. Now, there's only been 19.7 million mined so far, because, you know, the mining is going to extend out another 150 years. So we're at 19.7 million. You got 3 million lost. So subtract that down, like 16.7 million. 14 million of those are individuals that don't want to sell right now because prices are creeping up. So there's approximately 2.7 million Bitcoin that's available out in exchanges right now. But moving forward, companies, countries, sovereign wealth funds, etc., they're gobbling up around 3,000 a day. So do the math. We're about 1,000 days out from the next halving. There's approximately 3 million Bitcoin floating in the open market every day. But if you're going to pull 3,000 a day, you get about 1,000 days before there's very little out there, until those people that want to sell it at inflated prices do so. Back to the pizza here. Notice the price increases. Can you imagine 2010 getting up like that's 4/1 of a cent? Like $1 would have bought you more, 250 of those, right? Or 25, 250. It wasn't even 1/10 of a penny. So yeah, it was 4/10. It's going back 4/100 of a penny. And in 2011, it was $6.12. It did drop back 2012, but then look at the escalation of that. So just in your own opinion, like watching how the numbers, do you think it'll be higher next year, or do you think it'll be less than next year?
I think they'll do the same thing that they did last time when it kind of dropped and then it went way up. I think that's going to happen again.
Yeah, we're in the beginning phases of that. Almost everybody, I mean, everybody who knows anything about crypto, like any of these like guys you want to watch, and ladies as well, I don't see anything under like 140, 150,000 as prediction. Most of it's over 200-ish.
Yeah, that's what I've been seeing.
So as we look by the end of the year, a lot of people are calling 250 seems to be a standard around at the end of the year, 250,000. Have a 2 in front of it by next year for 2026, maybe 200 and some thousand. Now, how many Bitcoin will that loosen out of people's hands at $250,000 per Bitcoin? Would you $250,000 if you had a Bitcoin, or would you hold it knowing that the following year it's going to be worth 500,000 and maybe you would chip off 10% or something? Would you sell an entire Bitcoin and get all that money? I don't think so. You'd probably, or a quarter or a tenth, you know, something like that.
Yeah, you'd sell half of it and then leave the rest, since you've already made your money back.
Yeah, and then you live off that for a minute there. But
I saw this guy. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, like, how much does it cost you to live per year? And that's how much Bitcoin you need to chip off.
Right. No, I forgot the guy's name. He's a billionaire, but he was talking kind of a little trash about our system. He was like, you know, what I did first was take a gigantic loan. I took that gigantic loan, I put it in an interest-bearing account. Then I used that account to get another loan, and I put that loan in the same interest-bearing account. And he did that multiple times until that the interest outweighed the minimum required payment on the loan. So he was sitting there just living. He's living off interest. He literally borrowed enough money to pay off the interest so that he could take money out and do business with that yearly. off of just the, the interest bearing that he was making on it was more than the minimum required payment to pay it back. Now you can't do that on small fries, but he was just talking about how it really works. And what did he do with the money? He started buying more gold.
And there was a guy who did that with credit cards, and all he did was buy more Bitcoin. He'd get credit cards, roll them up, and then the same thing. He was able to make the minimum payments for interest and then go get more cards and more cards and more cards. And all he kept doing was buying Bitcoin, more Bitcoin. And now it's gone up, and now he's paying some of it down and then getting larger and larger credit lines to buy more Bitcoin. Same thing. I don't know how many he owns now, but that was part of his thing. He's up on X. I forget the guy's name also, but brilliant move. Milk the system that's milking everybody. He reversed the tables on them.
Well, obviously you do need a little bit of money to start out with, or you can't do the loan scheme, obviously, or the borrow the money until you get to the point where you're just paying out per month. But obviously these people that have lots of money that are trading in Bitcoins can already do that. That's what everybody's doing. That's the whole new system where they don't pay for nothing, but they keep all the wealth.
Yeah, eventually the Bitcoin is going to come to some sort of loan scheme where you'll be able to pledge your Bitcoin. This is why a lot of legislation needs to come now, so you don't lose your Bitcoins like in BitConnect or FTX or Celsius or the line of 100 out there deep where people lost all their money. There's going to be some real solid legislation. And at that point, when it gets real solid, they're going to be giving you probably around 5 or 6% per year to lock your Bitcoin in some sort of reserve account. And you'll be drawing 5 or 6% off that. I mean, already looking at across the whole crypto ecosphere, you can get anywhere from like between 5 and 8% on coins. So if you got whatever amount that you had that you bought a long time ago that you pledge those, or you actually lock them in for the blockchain to have a certain amount at the base of it, they'll yield you out some interest on that too. And a lot of people are starting to live off the interest of just those coins that, and then a lot of times they'll roll them over. So you think you got Sway for like 5 cents, Solana for, $2 back in the day. Now it's 200, so 100x increase over the last year or so, 2 years. Like you could actually live on that now. So if you had 1,000 of those coins, right now it's worth, a couple $100,000 at, a few percent off of 8%. Then you got some Bitcoin and you got some whatever. People are going to start living off the interest. Won't ever have to sell it. They'll just have to lock it in on the blockchain. I believe will continue to grow in the future. Whatever you believe that will grow in the future, please follow that. And I do appreciate you watching tonight. Please remember, buy me a coffee, Civilization Cycle, and right over at the civilizationcycle.com website, put in your email. We'll get you the show notes for tonight. And also feel free to contact us. The email's below on the civilizationcycle.com website and send us a message. And if you want to come on the show, drop us a note and we'll see if we can arrange something. Bye for now, but Ransom, take us out.
All right. Grow food. You might not find it at the grocery store.
Grow food, farm Bitcoin, yeah.
Or you could do lead farming, whatever makes it easier for you. Anyway, peace out. Thanks for joining.